because David celebrated 15 months sober, and I'm sure he.
Congratulations, Dave.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Jason said something very interesting. He said when we would all have a drink, you wouldn't appear. So where would you be during those periods where the rest of the team were having a drink?
I'd be sneaking out for a drink. I'd go and see my own friends. Because we'd stay in a hotel in Cardiff. No problem, Brownie. I think it's because you banter bored me. Brownie was spending too much time in the gym for me. So,
He just didn't want to spend the money.
Yeah, so I would, I'd sneak out because I was from Cardiff. We'd normally stay in hotels in Cardiff, so I'd go and see my friends and drink. And I think that's the problem. I think with alcoholism, it's not someone who drinks every day, and it depends on they kind of it's how they behave when they're drinking. And I was always off the Richter scale. Especially later on in my career, I was drinking 3-4 bottles of red wine, but then I was also trying to take my own life after when I was coming in from a night out. So from that point of view, that's where I was just literally completely helpless, and I needed to get help. And that's when I decided to check into rehab. And it's kind of the same thing about mental health and addiction. I wonder how many coaches and managers will be out there saying, well, do you know what, my player is an alcoholic, are we going to find help for him? Because when I was at a lot of clubs, they'd say, well, he's a bit of a live wire, he loves a night out. But they didn't really ask me if I'm okay or did I need help at any given time. It's kind of right, you're a problem here. Let's get you out of the building so you can be someone else's problem. And that's the same thing whether it's mental health, addiction, or anything's going on. We're always looking to try and help players on the pitch rather than off it. And when I went to the Euros with Wales, I did say that, it was such a high, and I was very proud and privileged to be in the Welsh squad. But we're always focusing on what we're going to do on the pitch rather than what we're going to do off it. And 6 to 8 weeks in your own hotel room, being away from your family and friends or whatever it might be, is really difficult, especially when you're not playing as much and you want to play. And so all sorts of mental problems come to the table, and you're not really getting the support system that you need. So it's kind of focusing on the pitch, and you're not really treated as a human off it. And I feel that more support needs to be put in place as a player, as a human, really, because we always just look at football as they're robots, and we do have feelings.
Lots of mental health days in football. We have had far more in the last year than we have had the last couple of years than we have had for a long time.
A little bit, I think. Sorry, I think a little bit. I don't think we're. I think it's kind of, again, it'd be interesting if a player says to his manager, I'm struggling mentally, but the only time I feel free is to play on a Saturday. And that's what I felt. I felt free. The only time I felt free during the week was when I play on a weekend or play a football match. And if that gets taken away from a manager because he's like, oh, he's mentally weak, he can't perform at the high level or whatever, I think that I would be really interested to see if a manager and a player is at that place where they can trust him.
If you go back 10, 15 years, if a player would have turned around and said to the gaffer, oh, I'm struggling with mental health, then I know many managers that would turn around and say, oh, he's weak, I don't want him any part of my team. But I think it's brilliant now that players have got that platform to go and say that I'm struggling with whatever the reasonings may be. I need a bit of help, and it's being looked at properly, rather than managers and coaches and whoever saying that, oh, this player's weak and don't want him nowhere near me. So I think it's actually brilliant that the platform that you're using now, and obviously with mental health being such a huge thing in the modern game, that it's actually being addressed properly.
Jamal, how much of a problem was it for you?
Do you know what? Looking back in my career, there's been times where I feel maybe I actually was struggling with mental health. I went through a time when I went through a very long and stressful divorce, and football was my get out. Like when I went to training, that was me just releasing and enjoying the boys, the banter in the dressing room and stuff like that. And I used to dread going home, and I was going home to my kids and my ex-wife at the time, and my kids were obviously they were great as well. But I used to stay at training for as long as possible. And looking back now, that was a sense of depression that I was going through, and I spoke to nobody about it. And I was just thinking, oh, this just must be a normal thing. And them times were tough, and I had to deal with it on my own. But I just think it's unbelievable now that like Cots is doing it and it's fantastic. I think we spoke before, Cots, and me like congratulating you on like the platform that you have speaking out about it, because it's tough, because you do feel like if you speak about it, you do feel weak and all the rest of it, and that's a horrible thing as a man, to feel like you're being weak. But I think it's brilliant now that it's able to be addressed, and like people are given a platform to speak up and get the relevant help that they all need.
Do you feel that we're making progress in the fight in the battle to deal with mental illness?
Sorry, I'm just getting a bit emotional listening to these guys. Sorry, 1 second. It's tough. It's tough. You know, I must say, before I say anything, a massive thank you to Mark Bennett, Sporting, who helped me within the PFA. If it wasn't, he played a massive role in me being here today. I remember when I was at Arsenal, Tony Adams came working in at the academy, and I gave him a massive hug. And I said, thank you for Sporting Chance. They gave me my counsellor, Nick Mercer. If it wasn't for that organisation and them people, I wouldn't be here today, for sure. It was hard. I go back and I look and I say, wow, I was depressed for a long time. And you got, it's lonely. I started seeing my counsellor, and I remember I used to get in at Arsenal at 5 o'clock in the morning, and my way of self-harming was I used to just run on the treadmill for an hour, just relentless, put my body through it, and then I used to leave the office. I didn't want to leave the office sometimes. Sometimes I didn't want to leave the office. I'd stay in the office until 10 o'clock at night because I just didn't want to leave. And I started seeing my counsellor, and it was real tough times. And, I was seeing my counsellor 2 or 3 times a week, and that was through Sporting Chance. And I remember there was one, you start having thoughts about taking your own life, and at first you're scared, and then you start rationalizing it, and it becomes normal. It becomes like, okay, I have a legacy. My children have a legacy to be proud of, and their grandchildren. And you just want it to end, but it's difficult. And if you ask me, it's great that we're having the conversations, for sure. So that's a step, for sure. That's a step. Does the government, does the Premier League really want to deal with this issue? No. It's the taboo conversation no one wants to have, along with racism. They don't want to have these conversations. I know the PFA are set up something where they're educating players in becoming counsellors, or the first stages of becoming a counsellor. And thank you. Of becoming a counsellor. Excuse me, sorry. Of becoming a counsellor. And you need more players educated in that, because I can totally relate to what these guys are saying. And one thing with counselling, as my counsellor always said to me, is empathy. And he's an addict. So he could understand, he could emphasize. And that's so important. And I think, again, we talk about being proactive. We need to take the initiative. And again, I can't help but say it. Players that are retired, that are suffering. Then you have the younger players. I mean, again, Pally, I can only think of him as a young pro, and he used to talk to us all the time, and he used to talk to us about after the game, and stuff like that, and about being professional. And we need to do the same. We need to do the same, and we need to take care of these guys, because when you come out, football's gone. And they say, as an athlete, it takes anything between 6 months to 6 years for you to realize that you're no longer an athlete. Darren, that's scary. Waking up every day still thinking, going out, still thinking you're an athlete, you're a football player. And then all of a sudden it dawns on you that you're not, and everything is gone. Friends, money, and you look around and go, what have I got? Who am I? And you don't, and because you're institutionalized, you don't even know who you are. I'm still learning about who Jason Brown is as a person, because for many years, as me and Jamal said at the beginning with the tragic death of Pierre Bellany, is that we had to just deal with that. Boom. Boom. You had to put blinks on. You can't deal with that then. You have to put that in the back of your mind, leave it. You have to move on, because otherwise you're not going to have a career. And that's the thing where having people inside, football players, educating them about counselling. You know, you're right in what you're saying. There are people that go out and talk, and there's a lot of players that don't listen. I was one of them players, if I'll be honest, that don't listen to stuff like that. Why? It doesn't. I've got years left in my career, but we need to do more. And again, that comes from the top. It has to come from the top. But the great thing is that we're having these conversations. And David, thank you for doing the hard work that you're doing.
Thank you, Brownie.
Sorry, Jerome. We can talk about the success stories, or, you know, I'm one of the lucky ones. There's many players that haven't made it. I'm one of the lucky ones. Every day I wake up and I go, okay, how am I today? So I come to realize how I am. So if I'm having a bad day, I'm having a bad day. I have to come to terms with that. That's the first step of getting better. But as I said, I deal with my depression like it's an addiction. I'm in recovery. I respect it. You have to respect the depression. Don't ever think that it goes, because it doesn't. And when it comes back, it can bite you. And I still have down days. And I'm open about that. I'm open about it with my partner or whoever I come into contact. I'm open. I've gone through stuff, and this is what it is, and this is how I deal with it. Young players, as I said, I was depressed. I was at Blackburn. I was about 26. I was depressed from about 26. And that was at my peak earnings. I was depressed because the money, guys, you guys probably have to relate to this. The money kind of glosses over that. If you're feeling down, what do? You just go and buy something. Go and buy a new car. Yeah. Go and buy this, go and buy that. New clothes. Or you go out on a bender. Like what people do, Darren, is people, and I'm not saying you, but the media has this tendency, and the government have done it of recent, where they label football players because they go out and stuff like that. You, as a young football player, have to go out very quick. You go at 16. Jamal, we're in the building. Dave, we're in the building at 16, right? With a bunch of men. You have to become a man at 16. You're still a young boy. You're still a teenager. So you lose them years of developing as a man. You have to become a man right there. So when they talk about football players going out, it's a way of just escaping the pressure of not just football, your home life, because you're the main breadwinner. You know, and yes, you are earning a lot of money, but you still got to try and manage that, as well as other things. You've got people around you that are going to cling on, that are sucking you like leeches. So all of these things people don't understand. They just want to go, see, they're acting up, they're acting up. What I call it is like the reverse. You're reversing your years. So the years that you missed out from 16 to 20, when you go from a teenager to a man, you're kind of making up for them years, because people in a normal life are out partying at them times. They get it out of their system. So by the time they reach their 20s, they're now realizing, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do this. So I think, and that's the pressure that's put on from the media and the government when they come out with stupid statements and showing football players the pictures and stuff like that.
I think that's Brownie. I think that's perfectly right. What you just said, it hits the nail on the head. What you're saying, because in society and on social media, everyone, as soon as anything, even when coronavirus come out, right, footballers need to help. Let's blame the footballers for it, because they need to start putting more money in. We paid a huge amount of tax anyway, which helps obviously go a long way in the country. But it's just well, we target footballers straight away, and it's wrong. But then footballers get targeted that way. But then you have CEOs and owners of big companies who are earning a lot more money. They don't seem to get targeted, but then footballers do. And it's kind of well, they're earning that amount of money, so they don't really have feelings. That's the way we look on things from society's point of view, is that they're footballers, everyone loves them, so that they don't feel the same way we do. Well, that's ultimately wrong, because you can have as much money as you want, you can have as many likes on social media as you want as well, but if you don't like yourself, then you're really in a dark place.
That just literally papers over cracks. And like, Jay, what you said there like a couple of minutes ago about being institutionalized, that is a massive thing for me. Like, obviously, like, I'm coming out the game now and I'm transitioning into coaching, and like I've almost been suffering in the dark, because like I get up every day, I've got massively into cycling, and that's been my headspace every day. Like I'm cycling 60 to 100k a day, because I just want to feel like that athlete, like you said. Like I miss being that athlete and feeling relevant and all the rest of it. And cycling's been my mental headspace, getting up and going out for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours a day and just cycling. I'm just feeling that pain in my legs, but I'm still wanting to do it, because it's that feeling of relevance. And like, it's just that word institutionalized is a massive thing. And like, the PFA or whatever, they don't teach us how not to be a footballer, how to come out the game and all the rest of it. It's like, you've got your career, you're in your career, brilliant, but when it ends, that's it. And it's almost like you're cast aside.
Yeah, it's because we're so used to getting told what to do. I remember this, and it's quite an embarrassing story. But when I retired, because Brownie, when we used to go away with Wales, I'm sure obviously Jamal's had that as well, is that when we used to go away, whether it was on the train or we had a plane, we would have our coaches waiting on the runway. So we very rarely went through, the normal airports procedures or anything, or security. So we were literally babied, if you like. We had a routine. We had always people looking after us, and we were told what to do, and we had to follow those instructions. And of course, you need to have routine in other jobs. But I remember when I retired, I was 30, and I went to the train station, and my wife at the time, I was like, how'd you get out of the train station? I didn't even know how to get a train ticket because I was so used to being just told what to do and having literally everything put on a plate for me. It's like I didn't even know how to behave at a 30-year-old, as an adult. It was just like crazy. I thought, how embarrassing that I have to ring my wife at the time to try and get out of a train station.
One thing I want to touch on. So obviously I'm here, and one thing I've learned about the NFL doing research, my fiance was telling me, they have a program in place, because a lot of these kids go from nothing to millionaires like that with one phone call on the draft. And they have a program put in place for the first 3 to 5 years that they teach them about how to handle their life, day-to-day things, and so forth. They have to subscribe to this, and they're part of it, and they teach it a bit like that. Now, that's something I think they could teach youngsters. Do you know what I mean? I think that's something that they can teach youngsters. But again, there's enough ex-football players. Now, there may not be many out there that want to do this type of work, but you'd be surprised how many do in regards of education and for counselling and stuff like that. People like yourself, Dave, should be in there mentoring, and the PFA should be supplementing this. There's enough money, Darren. There's enough money. If you can pay someone, 1.2 a year or 2.2 million, whatever it is he's getting paid, take some of that. Here's something, Gordon Taylor. If you really, really, really care about the players, listen, I understand you've got bills to pay. Give some money that back, put it to things that matter. If you really care, and if you're there for the players, that is my challenge to him. If you really care for the players, is give some of that money to these places like Dave's, Cherry, and stuff like that to help players. Because you care, right? That's what you're there for. The PFA is there as a union for the players. Then give it back to the players.
Let me ask you very quickly what the way forward is. David, you have got a foundation. You help a lot of players. But do you believe the scale of the problem is very, very big in terms of all the things that we've discussed on the show? And do you believe that in this more enlightened culture, football can find a way forward?
Yeah, I do. I think, as I say, if we all can come together and we have fresher ideas getting implemented, I think there is definitely, like Brownie said, us having these conversations right now can only be healthy in terms of moving things forward. The only problem of being a young footballer of today, and even when I was growing up, is that sometimes I feel that the actual younger players following their own dreams, because a lot of parents see these kids as pensions. So you literally even have your own family members thinking, right, what can I get out of him? And they're supposed to be wanting the best for you. So it's so it's not just coming from the football industry, it's actually coming from at home as well. You need to be educating yourself from there. You need to have the right support network around you at home, because otherwise, that's why the footballers, a lot of footballers come across as arrogant. It's not that they're arrogant, it's because they protect themselves in that bubbles, because there's so many people going to latch onto them to have something for free. All the footballers are constantly getting asked, can we have tickets? Can we have this? Can we have that? Since I retired, no one's asked me for anything because I'm not in the Welsh squad anymore. But when I was, they wanted tickets non-stop and they act like your friends. But in reality is they're not. And when you do retire as well, the people who you thought supported you literally say to you, you're not a footballer anymore. So you kind of like thinking, oh, does that mean I'm not a human being anymore? So you need to, so it doesn't make a difference. So I think from that point of view, mental health, that it is good that we're having these conversations, but I think there's a whole still long way to go to make sure that everyone's right. And again, if racism is still in place, then that's still a form of way of mental health anyway. So we're not really moving forward as much as we think we are.
And that's also in schools as well. In schools, they need counsellors. Because these kids are in the academy at such a young age. Now, some clubs are recruiting kids at the age of 5. So already the institutionalization has already started.
Well, the problem is as well, all these the agents as well in the game are literally buying parents' houses for X amount of money, and it's life-changing money. So even from a parent's point of view, it's very difficult to say, well, do we take this as a security for us just in case our sons don't make it as a professional footballer? Because agents are willing to pay millions of pounds for these young players to their parents these days. And so that's the kind of struggles and the challenges that parents do come up against as well. So it's very difficult to protect our children. And again, it goes back to education. In schools, we need to do the same things. We need to educate how to look after the money, how to deal with mental health, deal with racism.